Hello, and welcome to my channel. I'm Tessa Shea, and today I'm going to be talking about Cinderella. More importantly, the Disney Cinderella movies, such as, Cinderella, the animated movies. There were actually three of them, which a lot of people don't realize, but there were three of them. There was Cinderella, the original, of course, and then there was Cinderella 2, which was more of a collection of stories, and then Cinderella 3, which is by far so amazing. It's just incredible. I love it. And a lot of people also don't realize that there was one that came out with Whitney Houston and Brandy back in the 90s. And it is actually a Disney one. It's really good. It's probably one of my favorite Cinderellas of all time because I love the music. It's Roger and Hammerstein, so it's very true to that original Broadway Cinderella musical. But it's just really beautiful. It's got Bernadette Peters in it as well. And Whoopi Goldberg. It's got a lot of different people in it. It's super good. And then, of course, we have the new movie that came out recently with Lily Collins, the live action. And it was beautiful. It didn't have the music, so that kind of bummed me out because I am a huge musical kind of person and I love it. But, yes. So it is... I am looking forward to talking about this with you guys today. So if we're going to start from the beginning, we'll start with the original Disney animated movie Cinderella, which, if you guys have not seen it, spoiler alerts, there's going to be a lot of those because I'm going to be telling you about all these movies today if you haven't already seen them, which you should. You should have already seen them. If you haven't, go back and watch them and then we can talk about them, okay? Just, And before we get too far into this is my first video, so I'm very excited to be talking with everybody today, and I'm over the moon to finally be starting this. I've been talking about it forever, so I'm excited to actually start it. So, hit that like button and subscribe, help me. All right, so let's get into it. So Cinderella 1, the animated version. So classic music, of course. Everybody knows those songs. A dream is a wish your heart makes. Everybody knows those songs and they're beautiful. And I love that movie. And I don't know if it's just because of nostalgia or because it's just a beautiful animation. And Disney had all these beautiful hand-drawn animations during that time, especially. And actually they kept true to that through all the animated ones, which I am so grateful for that they didn't try to make them CGI or anything else. So the first one was super good. It was, it follows this Cinder girl, so they're calling her. So she is a scullery maid, but I guess her boss is really her stepmother. So it follows her as her father dies. Her father died and he had married this awful woman with her two wicked daughters right before he died. And so she ends up becoming a servant to her stepmother and her stepsisters, and she's just living this really hard life, but she's so gentle and kind about it. She's friends with mice and birds and a dog named Bruno. That's super funny. It's very interesting. And then one night she wants to go to the ball, and the mice help make this beautiful dress for her, and her stepsisters and her stepmother destroy it. And so she's sad, and they go off to the ball, and she runs into the garden to cry, and then a magical fairy godmother appears, and she's like, "Ooh, all your dreams will come true." If only that's how life really worked. So she gets to go to the ball, she dances with the prince, of course, and it is, magical, and he's looking for her because she has to be back by midnight, and because the magic will only last till midnight. Like, come on. It can't last any longer than that. Anyway, so the fairy godmother helps her get her this beautiful gown, and then glass slippers, which I think is a very weird shoe choice in general, because I feel like if you're dancing in those, I feel like you'd crack them and they'd break, and then you'd be dancing on glass, and I don't think that would be very fun. But, they're magical, so maybe they're so magical that they don't break, which is not true actually. But we'll get to that. So anyway, so she comes back, and apparently the shoes are the only thing that are like magical but non-magical enough to where she can keep them, because everything else, like her pumpkin carriage turns back into a pumpkin, her outfit turns back into her raggedy dress that they had torn up, and stepmother realizes that she was the one who danced with the prince and locks her up as the prince decides to try the shoe on every maiden in the kingdom. Like, it just, I have so many questions. Like, why did you not think this would fit on more than one person? Why is that? Why? And then, so anyways, so she eventually gets out with the help of her mice friends like Jacques and Gus, and they help her get unlocked from the attic, and she comes down and tries on the shoe, and happily ever after, bye-bye stepmother and stepsisters, you guys are banished away from me. Which she never banished them, which was really crazy. So anyway, so we'll move forward a little bit into the sequel, which is the second one, which is kind of like Belle's Magical World. If you've ever seen that, it is the original sequel to Beauty and the Beast, which there's a third one too to that, and that's called Enchanted Christmas. But the sequel is just a collection of stories that Jacques and Gus and Fairy Godmother are talking about, because they're wanting to make a book for Cinderella. And so like the first story is of course like about like their first day in the castle and how Cinderella dealt with becoming a princess all in like one day after being a scullery maid and a dishwasher maid or whatever. And so that was it's really interesting. I don't like the second one as much as I love the third one. I love the third one so much. But with the second one, it was really sweet because you also follow Cinderella helping Anastasia find her true love, who was a baker, and it was so cute. And of course, stepmother was not happy that it was a baker and not some nobleman, but you know, what can you do? And by the way, Anastasia is one of her stepsisters. So, but she's like the nice stepsister because you have Drusilla and you have Anastasia. And neither of them were very nice, but Anastasia ends up redeeming herself later. So, you know. All right, and then we move on to the third one, which is one of my favorite movies. I love it so much. And normally sequels aren't that great, but this one was so good. I can't even express how good this movie was, because everybody actually had a personality in this movie. Like, the prince had a personality. He actually talks in this movie. The king has a personality. The duke has a personality. Even the stepmother and stepsisters have personalities. And Cinderella has a personality. And so it follows, it's a year later, and the prince and Cinderella are living their best life. They're just so happy and in love with each other. And then you see Anastasia, Drusilla, and stepmother, Lady Tremaine, and they are miserable because they're doing all the work, you know, all the housework now that Cinderella used to do all in one day, every day. And it used to be a beautiful house, but now it's like a filthy, gross house because they don't know how to clean anything or do anything. And Anastasia ends up following Cinderella into the woods, where she finds out how Cinderella became, how she got to the dance and how she got the beautiful dress and everything else. She figures it out that it was a fairy godmother. She steals fairy godmother's wand, and she goes back to her house with her stepmother, or with her mother and her sister, and she's like, look what I got. And they're like, she's like, all of our troubles are over. And she's like, it's a stick, let's beat her with it. Like, it's just really funny. And so fairy godmother comes, she's like, you silly goose, you don't know what that does. And she's like, bippity boppity boo, and she turns fairy godmother into a lawn ornament. She turns her into the stone fountain. And Lady Tremaine, stepmother, she takes the wand from Anastasia, and she makes time reverse back to when their lives didn't suck. So right before Cinderella tries on the slipper, she reverses time back to that point and makes it to where the shoe fits Anastasia's foot. And if you guys remember, Anastasia's foot was really big. So the guy the footman, he's like trying to put the shoe on her, and it's only fitting like her big toe, and he's like, "Ah," and then bippity boppity boo, and then it's like, he's like, "It fits. We're done." Everybody just gives up. They're like, you know what, it fits. I'm not even gonna question why this 4.5-foot slipper fit on this 10.5-foot girl. I don't know. And so Cinderella's obviously confused. She's like, Anastasia did not dance with her, and I think she's more confused how it fit her foot, because she's, she's cleaned her feet, her shoes and everything else. She's seen those feet. We all know that they are way bigger than Cinderella's. And so anyway, so they go to the castle. Cinderella's left in the house, and stepmother and the stepsisters all go to the castle, and the prince is there, and he comes into the room to meet his bride because he thinks it's Cinderella. And then he goes in there and he sees her, and he's like, am I in the right room? Of course I'm in the right room. I think there's been a mistake. They're like, but it fits. And he's like, yes, well, I guess it is true that more than one person could have fit that slipper. That was an oversight on my part. I will have the Grand Duke take you home safely. Like, why did nobody think about that? Like, how could it not fit more than one person? More than one person. I guess because it's a magical slipper, so it's only supposed to fit that one person. But it still doesn't make sense. Like, there's more than one person who would have the same foot size as her. You'd think. Anyways, so fast forward, they make him believe that it was Anastasia that he danced with. So he's like, oh yeah, we'll marry today, blah, blah, blah. But, you can't stop true love, especially in Disney movies. You just can't stop it. And apparently, it's not true love's kiss in this. It's, if you touch hands, you'll know who your true love is. That would make high fives really awkward if you just high five somebody randomly. Oh my God, you're my true love. I wasn't ready to find this, and I didn't expect it from a high five. I will never wash this hand. Anyway, so fast forward, and Cinderella's broke into the castle pretending to be a mouse catcher, because why not? And so she sees the prince, and he's obviously confused. He's like, there's something about you. I don't know what it is, but there's something about you that just is very familiar. Very, very familiar. I don't know. And eventually the stepmother finds out that she's in the castle and gets her banished from the land. Like, she's on a boat to somewhere else. Princey gets a bunch of birds and mice talk to him, Gus and Jock. They talk to him, they tell him like the whole story, and he's like, of course, that's why when I touch Anastasia's hand, like, it feels nothing. I feel nothing with her. He's like, I was very confused because at the dance we were very different. And so anyway, so he runs out. He runs to go get Cinderella back, and he's about like running out, and he's like, I gotta go find my princess. And he's like, his dad's like, what are you talking about? Your princess is here. And he's like, no, I gotta go find the right one. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah, the bluebirds and the talking mice. He's like, they say I got the wrong girl. And his dad's like, what the fuck? So anyway, so we go forward, and he's obviously got Cinderella. He found her, touches hands, and then he remembers everything. Because instead of true love's kiss, it's true love's handshake. Anyway, so he takes her back, and they obviously go to arrest the stepmother and stepsisters, but they bippity-boppitied their way out of there. And so fast forward, stepmother changes Anastasia to look like Cinderella. So they will think that they are getting Cinderella married. and she sends Cinderella into this demon pumpkin to go off a cliff. Like, it gets real dark. Like, it's pretty dark for Cinderella. And so anyway, so Anastasia's in the process of getting married, but she doesn't say I do because she's so sweet, and all she wants is love. That's all she wanted the whole time, was love. And Cinderella gets out of there, and she comes back, and she's walking through the door just as Anastasia says, I don't want to marry you. And Prince, he touches her hand and realizes this is not Cinderella. And then he sees Cinderella, and everybody's confused. Everybody's very confused. And Lady Tremaine, she's mad at Anastasia. She's like, you are a selfish girl. Like, I've given you everything you want. She's like, no. She's like, I want a love that's mine. Like, and it's just really heartfelt, and you feel really good for, like, Anastasia, because Anastasia's actually being a good person. And they, bippity boppity. Lady Tremaine accidentally, like, bippity bops herself and Drusilla into being toads back at their house, because when they bippity bopped towards Anastasia and Cinderella, Prince came in with his sword, and it shined, and it reflected it back onto them. And so Cinderella and Anastasia obviously bring back Fairy Godmother, and then turn Anastasia back into Anastasia, not Cinderella. And then the Prince and Cinderella get married. And then Fairy Godmother's like, do you want me to send you back to your own time? And they're like, what? No, we're good. Like, they're just like, they're not even paying attention. They're so madly in love, it doesn't matter. So that is the third movie, A Twist in Time. I so highly recommend it if you haven't guessed that already. Next, we're going to talk about the Brandy and Whitney Houston, Whoopi Goldberg, Bernadette Peters, live action Roger and Hammerstein Cinderella that's a Disney movie that people don't realize is one of the best Disney Cinderella movies I've ever seen in my life. I used to watch this all the time. I have it on VHS. I still have it on VHS. You can also watch it for free on YouTube. Just saying. Just saying. Anyways, it is a good movie. It follows Brandy as Cinderella, and she talks about how, like, when her, it's a story of Cinderella, but it's a little different in certain ways. Cinderella in this is more like, she talks about, like, her dreams and, like, how she wants to go explore things and do things. And then the fairy godmother in this, which is Whitney Houston, she's just like, she's like, if you don't think I could be a fairy, because she's, like, looking so good, and she's like, what, if you want some old lady in a tutu, I can zap out, like. But the music in it is probably what really draws me to it, is because the music is so good, and just the voices and the way everything's done. And it's just so different because when the prince meets Cinderella for the first time coming down the stairs, they sing the song called 10 Minutes Ago, and it's so pretty. It's like, 10 minutes ago I met you, and we murmured our how do you do's, and it's just like, okay. And of course her stepsisters in this are really interesting, because they're nice, but they're not nice. It's like they're trying to appease their mother, who in this, their mother she hates love, because she was in love once and that person broke her heart. So now she doesn't marry for love, she marries for riches and power, and she's teaching her daughters the same thing. And it's so good. It is so good. And the costuming in that is phenomenal. The colors and everything. And then somebody else who's in it is Whoopi Goldberg, and then it's got a guy from Seinfeld. Oh, I can't remember his name. He's like the short one with, like, the balding head. Ooh. Anyways, he's in that, and it's just very entertaining, and I highly recommend the movie because, all the characters have these big personalities. It's really interesting. And then we're going to go on to the next one, which is the newest one with Lily Collins. Or not Lily Collins. I've been saying Lily Collins this whole time. Didn't even mean to say Lily Collins. Anyway, so the newest one. The main girl, she's actually in Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again, which is super good too. I enjoyed the movie a lot. I hated that it didn't have music because I'm a huge, I love musicals, like I said. She was like a really kind soul. In this one, her mom was there for a good portion of her childhood, but she died from a disease. And then her dad didn't get married again until she was way older. So she was probably 17, 16, and her dad was miserable and he wanted her to marry, or he wanted to marry somebody so that she'd have a mom again. And so he did. He married this beautiful woman and came with her 2 awful daughters. And she, filled the house with a lot of parties and stuff all the time, and which was not really her dad's thing or really her thing, but it was nice because the house was lively again. But the stepmother was just so jealous of Cinderella, and jealous that she looked like her mom and that her husband would never truly love her more than his daughter, which is just crazy. You came into their life, that's his whole world right there. And he ended up dying, of course, as it's Disney, so we gotta kill the parents. And she ended up becoming their servant, but she was still so kind about it. She was such a kind-hearted person, and it's something that she took from what her mom told her. Have courage and be kind. Which is very good words to live by, guys. Very good words to live by. And she met the prince in the woods, but she didn't know it was a prince. He pretended to be an apprentice, but then she met him again later. And Helena Bonham Carter plays the fairy godmother in this, which was weird. They showed a lot of her in the trailer, but she really wasn't in the movie that much, and that was kind of disappointing because I love Helena Bonham Carter. And anyway, so fast forward, of course, stepmother finds out, and she tells her that she's I will give you back your slipper and I'll let you marry him but I will be in charge of him. She's he's just a boy. She's and I will run the country, basically. And Cinderella's no. She's I'm not gonna let you ruin the country. I'm not gonna marry him just so you can ruin the country. I'm not gonna do that. So she ends up breaking the slipper, but of course, the apprentice, the prince, he knew who Cinderella was, and he knew. I just think this one has a really good storyline, because there's a lot more to the story, which is the same for a lot of the other ones. It's just interesting to see how far we've progressed from the original one, because there's just so much more story to them. And so if you take anything away from what I've said today, it is to go ahead and go on Disney Plus and watch all of the Disney movies, especially all these Cinderella ones, especially A Twist in Time and the Brandy Cinderella, because I highly recommend them. They are so good, and they are some of my favorites. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to my first YouTube broadcast. Not broadcast. Duh. Can't even think of the words. Tells you how good I am at this. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and of course, hit that like button and subscribe, and thank you so much, and you guys have a wonderful day.